Pregame.com.
Welcome back to Pregame.tv. We're going to preview Kansas at Oklahoma. VR, Kansas, what a shocking game the other night. TCU, they're number 5 in the country, Kansas. They go into TCU. They only scored 13 points in the first half. They made a big comeback in the second half, made a game of it, but still they couldn't get over the hump. They dug too big of a hole. What do you make of this Kansas team? Was this just, a bump in the road, or is there problems there?
I really think it was a bump in the road. This is a 19-3 team. On top of it, they're 7-2 in conference. And when you look at Kansas, the problem with them is simple. They don't go deep. If you look as far as the minutes that their bench plays, they're ranked 313th in all of college basketball. And that's not going to get it done, especially as we go later in the season, conference tournaments, March Madness. You got to go a little deeper than that. But in this matchup against Oklahoma, I think they're just going to be a little too much for them. They got too much size. Oklahoma just doesn't have the size to compete with Kansas. They're big, Kansas is. And they're mature. I mean, for a Kansas team, they're extremely mature. You got 4 seniors that get a lot of minutes. I think they'll be able to go on the road, which is one of the toughest things to do in college basketball, is win on the road. I think it's at 3 points, I'll lay it.
Well, I look at this game and I look at Kansas, and the fact that they lost to TCU, I think this was more of a hangover from the game before. They lost to Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State, decent team, not one of the elite teams, but a decent team. And I've seen it so often, and we saw it a couple weeks ago with Louisville, that when these teams are cruising along and then they play a big game and they lose it, they seem to have that carryover for another game or two. Well, clearly the carryover was there for TCU. The question is, are they able to, pick themselves up off the mat? And I think because this was such a shocking loss, it's one thing like when Louisville was struggling, they were playing, good teams. They lost to Syracuse, then, you had Cincinnati, you had Villanova. You had some good teams in the Big East, and the Big East beats up on one another all the time. We see that every year. But here, after losing to TCU, I just think that is the absolute wake-up call. And the other thing, VR, this is a quick revenge game. These two teams just played a couple weeks ago, and they get a chance, Oklahoma, to do revenge quickly for that 67-54 loss as a 12.5-point underdog at Kansas. But the one thing I'll point out before I throw it back to you, Oklahoma, they've struggled offensively when they've played the upper half of the Big 12. I look at games where Iowa State held them to 64, Kansas State held them to 50 and 60, and then, of course, Kansas held them to 54. That's not going to get it done. If Oklahoma's only going to be in, the mid-50s to upper 50s, low 60s, it's not going to be enough to win this game.
Offensively, they're not an efficient team, and they're going up against one of the best defenses that plays zone and man. I mean, they switch it up. I think they're just going to create too much problems for them.
Hey, we've talked this one out. Let's make this one official. This is VR's free pick. Let's say what you say.
I'm going to go ahead and take the road team here, Kansas -3. May look like the square side, but sometimes the public side is the right side. And in this spot, I'm going to lay the points with Kansas. I just think they're too big inside for them. The only weakness Kansas has right now is not going deep. They go about 7 deep, and that's not going to get it done come tournament time. But they do have a couple freshmen for them that by the time that rolls around, them guys will be more or less sophomores. And who knows, they may be able to make a run. But I think you could back them on Saturday at -3. I'd get on them quickly. I think that line's only going to go up. So go ahead and take Kansas -3. This is a bet. This is why I'm going to make a disclaimer each and every video. I lost the bet. Someone sent in a T-shirt. And I got to wear it for the videos. No suit.
Thank God it wasn't a topless bet. All right, I'm Marco D'Angelo. He's Vegas Runner. We're going to be right back. We're going to take a look. Another big college basketball game on Saturday. We're going to go to the Big East. We're going to look at Louisville at Notre Dame. That's up next at pregame.tv.